Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Give My Head podcast with the Hole in the Wall gang. My name is Tim McGarry, joined by my comedy colleagues
Michael McDowell
and Damon Quinn.
As you know, on this programme, ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 90, but I can't remember what. We discuss all sorts of things: cultural, comedy, history, politics, all sorts of things. We've had politicians, we've had very, very important people. Before we speak to our very good guest today, I'd like to remind you that you can already buy tickets to see Give My Head Piece live in 2026. We're on tour all over the north and some parts down south.
2027.
27?
Yes.
Oh, God,
this is 2026.
Oh, God, yes.
You're in One Hill Studios in Hollywood,
yes.
Tim. We're going to bring you back to the house after this.
What time's Home's Under the Hammer on?
Who's the Prime Minister? Who's the Prime Minister?
March 19 to 2027. We're in the Grand Opera House. You can get your tickets now. Go to goh.co.uk. We're in Vicar Street as well, which tickets are on sale in Dublin. We're all over the place. Look out for Give My Head Piece in 2027. I'm still on tour with my solo show.
And what year's that in?
I'm on tour with my solo show till Tim McGarry's Height of Nonsense in the Lyric Theatre on the 28th of March.
2026?
Late night last night?
March?
26th, what? I'm in the Lyric Theatre on the 28th of August. I'm in Strabane on the 7th of October, and I'm somewhere else as well that I can't remember. I'm in Bangor. In Bangor doing a couple of shows. This is too early in the morning. Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, I do apologise.
Hello and welcome to Give My Head podcast.
Our guest is looking at us going, what the hell have I wandered into? Our guest, ladies and gentlemen, is a man by the name of Tony Carson. You might not know Tony Carson unless you're into your entrepreneurship and your business things, but this is a very famous and very well-known entrepreneur. A man who I know through work with the Integrated Education Fund. His name is Tony Carson. And Tony, I wanted to say, we had a discussion. We were out the other night at a thing. And we had a... still recovering. Tony, first of all, welcome to the Give My Head podcast. Part of the reason you're here, of course, is that your father is quite well-known comedian in Northern Ireland by the name of Frank Carson. And you are here to say that he was born literally 100 years ago this year. And you want to have a chat about Frank and his legacy, and we want to chat about what Belfast might be doing for Frank to celebrate his 100th anniversary. Yeah.
Okay, good morning, one and all. Frank was my dad, my dear dad, and his centenary's on the 6th of November coming up. So I'm back in Belfast now near 4 years on a permanent basis. And I've been having discussions over the last 3 years with Belfast City Council about what they might do. And I was given a very warm reception by the then young Lord Mayor, whose name I forget, the young Sinn Féin gentleman. Ryan? No. Yeah. No, that's the problem is I haven't been recently. Ryan, I think his name was, and lots of promises about maybe do something like a big mural, do some comedy festival, etc., all would be discussed all through committee, etc. And I've followed up with the operations director after that on more occasions than I want to remember, and basically it was the councillors are busy on other matters.
Right.
So in other words,
Fighting over street signs, I think we'll find. Bilingual street signs.
So disappointing, because obviously from my perspective, everyone I meet here who finds out that Frank was my dad have just got lovely things to say about him. A warm man, great man, not only the funny bit, but a nice person, and what he did for Belfast, the voice of comedy when things were dark, and in the UK especially, the only Northern Irish voice that turned a smile on people's faces. So there's a lot of sort of warmth about him, and I just find it, sad that the town he comes from and loved and gave so much to and for doesn't really want to celebrate. And I think that, the centenary is the last big thing. Mm-hmm. After that, I mean, you ain't going to celebrate 200 because none of us are going to be around to do so. But I mean, so I think it's the last big opportunity to celebrate. I know, Tim, you might do something within the IEF comedy nights at the Ulster Hall, and we've discussed possible options on that. But Belfast in general, I'd like to see if we could find some way of getting everyone out there to say, do something.
Yeah.
Yes, because he's still there. I mean, he's still in the psyche, and he's still, I suppose you have to be of a certain age, I suppose, but still very much. You say Frank Carson, they're going to know.
Well, people keep sending me Facebook, and he just seems to come up all the time. And I don't know how these algorithms work, but he's there.
Yeah.
The old bugger's still telling me the same old old shite.
He's still,
But
he's still an icon.
yeah, he is. Yeah, I mean, before I came on this, because Tim said at some stage, he might get me on nearer the centenary and go through a few of my dad's jokes, and I'm going, sugar. All I did was put my dad's name into Google, and the amount of actually Frank Carson's one-liners and the history of him and what he was all about, there's a huge amount out there in the ether.
Yeah.
Forget, he was absolutely massive when we were young, 70s and 80s.
Yeah,
he was never off the TV. Network star, was never off the TV. I think maybe people of our younger generation might go, "Who's Frank Carson?" How would you describe your dad to younger comedians today? He's one of those comedians who, slightly old style, but I mean an absolute gag merchant would be the
a one-liner. I mean, he literally just was like a machine gun, and he had obviously a huge photographic memory. So, and if a certain sort of stanza didn't work, he could go off that way and then down that way. So he could always gauge the audience and know exactly, what pitch from I don't know, I was going to say blue to something else. But he could do blue, but didn't really, because he was known as the sort of clean middle of the road
telly-friendly.
family. Yeah,
he was telly-friendly.
I mean, we remember as kids doing the crisp pods.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What crisp ads?
he did the whole, crisps.
Yeah, I'm right.
Selling the crisps, yeah.
Well, there was Ulster, wasn't there, like Piggy, the Ulster Bank, give me a check and things. I remember them as a kid as well.
Yeah.
Those sort of adverts. But I also remember him as a very young child from Tea Time with Tommy.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
No,
That was his first.
Come on in.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a tea time.
No, that is really in my vague memories now.
No,
Tea
it
Time
would
with
be.
Tommy.
Oh, it would be. Yeah. But I think that was his first TV.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Gig.
We were fortunate enough to have worked with him. I mean, we did a show with him.
Frank and Friends.
Frank and Friends.
Through Celador Productions.
Back in the 90s. That's how we met him.
All right.
So
Sorry about that.
We did a show. We did a show with him.
We also did a documentary that he was
yes,
in.
we did. I mean, so we did have that. We did personally meet him.
Yeah.
Although it was hard to meet Frank, I thought, because when he was with us, he was Frank the comedian.
Yeah.
Even when you went to the pub afterwards. He was giving you the one-liners.
But he was like that. No, there was no on and off with him. He
Yeah.
was 100% what he was. In fact, if he hadn't got an audience, he'd be on the phone. He'd just have to he'd have to be on a stage, a telephone stage.
Yeah.
He was just like, he was a pain in the proverbial. He was, because if we went out as a family, we would just ended up sitting there on our own while he entertained.
Yes.
I mean, it just while he entertained everybody else, and we were going the same old shit. But he loved it.
You couldn't
They
go
loved
anywhere.
it, and maybe I don't know. Is it one of those the two faces of the clown, the insecure and the and the happy? I don't know.
Well, you see, I had a chat with you. You don't admit. Sorry, you don't hide from the fact you're nearly 70 years old. But you go Tony Carson. Are you defined by the fact that you're a very successful businessman, entrepreneur, but do you go everywhere? You're Frank Carson's son. Is it a burden to you? Is it?
It's a double-edged sword. When you're younger, You know, I might have been a bit pigeon-toed because you were always being looked at, and there was always a camera, and you know, blah blah blah.
And you said you were in documentaries and things. And
Yeah, there was
dragged into
one man's week, you know, and even another documentary. My brother and my dad were taken to Las Vegas, and it was like another one man's week thing. So my dad was in Las Vegas. So brother and I, even playing crap golf, flying over, the Grand Canyon. I mean, it was all very. I'm not complaining.
No.
But there is another edge to it where you're never just yourself.
Yeah.
And even when I went off to college to do my degree, everyone expects you to tell jokes.
Yes.
I was going to say, is that? I mean, that never. You were never tempted by that, or was he so
not
good
in
that
your DNA. It's not in your DNA. I mean, it either is or it isn't.
Right,
I think if you're a script comedian, you'll only be a certain type.
Right.
If you're a natural, you just are. And I was not born to be a natural.
Right, so you weren't in
natural
school
comedian.
going, hey, that's a cracker.
No,
Tell 'em.
if I try and tell a joke, I normally forget the tag.
Right.
By the time I get there, it's like, why did I start? But it was difficult but as you get older, you got your own self-confidence builds in who you are yourself, and you're not under the spotlight of other people. And that doesn't happen for everybody. The Beckhams have got their problems. There's all sorts of people. Even Callum Best and all that. Growing up with a famous father can be very, very difficult unless you find yourself.
Yeah, kind of get wearing.
And I just buggered off at 18 from home because I couldn't hack it anymore. Not negatively, just I wanted to do something myself.
Yeah.
So just went off at 18, did my degree, went to London, and got on with life.
So you were. Your dad was 30 when you were born.
Yeah.
Was your big family? There were a lot of Carsons?
I'm the middle child, the difficult one. Magella is 3 years older than me. Aidan is a year and a half younger than me. So the three of us.
Right.
So Belfast, Blackpool, and then we went our different ways.
Right. I saw Dan Gordon's brilliant one-man play on Frank Carson. It's brilliant, but a lot of stuff.
Rebel Without a Pause.
Rebel Without a Pause, yes. Forgot. Brilliant title, by the way, because he didn't pause. When we met him, he didn't. But a fascinating life as well. I mean, they were born, you know, Jerry, they were born...
No, my dad wasn't born. No, they were born down in the docks. They were born in Little Italy, down there. So Mum and Dad met in Edward Street, which is still a little. The street sign is still there.
Off Corporation Street.
That's where my grandparents lived, and opposite what was the Seamen's Mission,
Right.
And near the little church. But it's obviously the big overpasses destroyed all those terrace houses. But they met at Edward Street, which is just off St Anne's Square. There's still the street signs there, but the street isn't there, strangely enough. But they were Little Italy. My dad's got Sicilian background, through my grandmother, maternal. She was Josefina Vittoria Augusta, from her background. And Grandad Johnny was a dub. Right. So I don't know. I think they might have met in Dublin. I'm not sure. But they lived around that whole dock area.
Right. And did he just naturally start telling jokes and never shut up and get into showbiz, or was he had a proper job for a bit, didn't he?
Well, no, he was a They say he was an electrician and a plasterer. I've never seen him do a plug in his life, and he was plastered too often. That's another matter. That was being punny. It wasn't all the time. So he did plastering. He went in the army. A lot of guys did to get jobs. In those days, he got into the paras because he was a very fit guy. Probably because he was a plasterer, big upper body strength, boxer, and all of that.
Sure.
So he was in the paras out in Palestine. He got shot. He says it was in the leg. I think it was somewhere else.
Who shot him?
Well, obviously in those days, he was at the St David's when it blew up.
The King David Hotel.
The King David Hotel.
That was sorry for those who don't know. That was when the Israeli terrorists were fighting the Brits, and blew up the King David and killed about 90 people. It was an awful attack, and
the Haganah,
and the ear gun and all that. And it was a horrific attack. That was 80 years ago, actually. This month, I think. Years ago. So he would have been only 20.
Yeah, no, he was. Yeah, he was.
He was literally, according to the play, he was literally pulling bodies out of the rubble.
Yeah, he was. But he could embellish things as well. So,
you saying your dad was a spoofer?
Well, no, he would just embellish. Let's call it that. And I've no proof to say that what he said wasn't true.
Right.
But just with an eye on him, I'd say there's, if he said he was a lance corporal, he was probably a private.
Right.
Or, all of that sort of thing. He liked to big it up. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with it. Self-promotion. But no, he then came back. He was a script writer. His first amateur entry into it was writing scripts for radio here in Northern Ireland. And then he went on to the Tea Time with Tommy thing. And as you know, the Opportunity Knocks thing, Huey Green.
His big break was Opportunity Knocks. Though. That's where he kind of.
Yeah, that's where
What year was that? I mean, you remember?
That would have been about 66,
right,
something like that. Yes. Because we left for Blackpool in '69.
Right.
So I was 13.
It's good timing.
Yeah. Well, it was. I mean, we lived in the New Lodge, so. As I always say, that's one of the reasons I'm a supporter of the Integrated Education Fund. When you move away at a young age and you look back and think, if I'd stayed in the New Lodge as a 13-year-old, where and what would I have
become?
I'd have been blueprinted by the society that you're in. And that can be very positive and can be very negative or somewhere in between.
Right.
So, have gone out and having lived away and looking back, when I was asked as a teenager, what's the solution? And you go, no idea. Is there one, etc. And then you find out about integrated education and what it can do to assist the knowledge, people knowing each other. It doesn't cure all things, but it helps to give a more plural view on life. I think, in my opinion, everyone's got entitled to their own opinion.
And did Frank get involved first in the IEF with Frank?
Yeah, no. I was because I'd done a few successful things. I was discovered, ambushed, I call it, by the IEF.
Same thing happened to me.
Yeah.
You get roped in, you go.
Yeah, but mostly.
Do us a wee favour, and the next thing you know.
For me, it was for my wallet, I think. But then after that, when we sort of got more involved, got my dad involved, and we got this Carson bursaries and the Carson prizes, which is an annual thing that in the schools where we fund projects around what integration means to me in the arts.
Right.
So it's everything from pure art, poetry, theatre, and digital as well, filming and so forth, so that we help the kids fulfil projects that they want to do, but on the theme of what integration means to me, which is a good PR thing for the integrated education, admittedly, but it's also great for the kids. And some of the kids have gone on to get to university to do arts and drama, etc., and they're very thankful for the help that they were given to polish their CVs through the projects, etc. Yeah, so it's good.
He Opportunity Knocks, you think about 1966, he would have been 40 by then. He's born November 26.
26,
So 40 up until, that's quite late. So he was a jobbing comedian before that here.
Yeah, he was doing the pubs,
doing the clubs
and all the rest of it. Yeah.
And there was a big scene in Belfast, actually. Before the Troubles, we kind of forget. I did a couple of things with Roy Walker. And
Roy's a good friend.
Roy's a good
lovely.
friend. Roy, I would say that the scene in Belfast, there was clubs and cabarets and stuff, was massive. People used to come from Dublin. We kind of think, we're the back end. That was part of the Troubles. Yeah. But there was a really good scene here, and there was plenty of work here, wasn't there?
Well, I wouldn't know myself. I didn't go to many gigs when I was 12 and 13, but I'm sure you're absolutely right. But, the scene was different then. You didn't have all the multi-channels and ways of being entertained the way you do now. So you had to go to a club or a pub to get entertainment because there was a black and white TV if you were wealthy enough
To have a
to have
television.
one in those days, you know. So I'm sure the scene was pretty big.
But then going from Belfast to Opportunity Knocks, he obviously had something that people just warmed to. He had a warmth about him, your dad. I mean, as a performer.
I think infectious laugh, and infectious laugh, and he was always famous for making you laugh before he delivered the tag. Before he actually delivered it, and you were just already there.
You knew you were going to laugh.
Yeah, exactly.
Before
so you were halfway there, so it was easy.
Yeah,
and it was. I have to say it, don't I?
Well,
it was the way he tells
as a stand-up comedian, it is an art form, but it was the way he told them, because that was the line, because other people would tell a joke and not get the same laugh that he got because it was the way he told them.
Yeah, I know. He used to say that, and people, he said, have a terrible memory for jokes, so he could tell the same shite over and over again. But it's the way I tell him, he used to say,
But they were terrible jokes, like.
I don't know about that.
Did you hear about the poor paper boy? He blew away.
That was one of his better ones.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was the way he delivered it.
Yeah.
He blew away. Hey.
And Opportunity Knocks was big enough that was it. That was the launchpad then. I mean, that was a big enough show.
It was, and then I think he got discovered by the next thing. I think was the Cilla Black. She was the big Friday night show,
right,
and he got onto the Cilla Black thing, and I think that then got him into the Johnny Hamp Comedians Granada, and that just then rocketed everybody.
Well, I remember the Comedians, and I do remember that really clearly.
Yeah.
That Penny show.
Yeah, but Comedians was
But that's just one-liners.
Yeah,
just
it was all
that
stuff. Yeah.
So late 1960s. Then you moved to England in 1969 because his career was just skyrocketing.
Yeah, and he was always going to be over there doing the clubs, doing very well. Mum and the three kids were back in,
Right.
So it was time to get over there. Mum wasn't too happy because she felt
I was going to say,
fish out of water. My mother.
It's hard to cope with that sort of level of fame. Did your mum take to it different? Did he love it and she kind of didn't?
Well, I mean, he more than loved it. He lived it. Whereas Mum sort of shied away from it. So it was complete opposites. So Mum just became, always was a domestic, person, and just became more of that. She didn't drive. She was in a country that she didn't, know no friends, etc. So she probably had quite a difficult time, and she was quite tough. My mother. I mean, Dad would never lift a hand to you, whereas my mother would. Be black and blue if you did anything wrong, and that was just old-fashioned. It was just the way it was. Unfortunately, but anyway, there we go. We all live and learn.
Yeah.
Generations are all different.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And his level of fame was enormous. I mean, it really was. He was never off the TV. He was gigging all the time. He was on TV. He was mixing in circles, as you say, with the Cilla Blacks, the big names at the time. Were the stars popping into your house every?
Oh yeah. I mean, all the comedians, especially, because they'd come and stay with us.
Were they like a community of comedians?
They were always really good friends. They had such a good time when they did like a summer season, a comedian summer season, Scarborough or Blackpool, whatever. I mean, what does a comedian do apart from work?
The night.
2 hours a night if they do a double show. The rest of the day they're golfing and drinking, or drinking and golfing. I don't know which way around, but certainly golfing. So they all had a great community and had great fun together, and they all knew not to approach each other's act, so to speak. So they all had their pigeonhole, and it all worked together. Yeah.
Did your dad actually write jokes, or did he just?
No, he was. He had a big joke book. He was always He was always writing. He had a photographic memory, as I said before. He was a big reader. Unfortunately, he read the Daily Mail every day.
Oh, right, okay.
So that was a bit of a problem.
My dad did that.
My dad did that.
And he was always on with, is it Little John? You know, there was a
Lord, yes, I know what you
somebody
mean,
commentator,
Oh,
on it,
yeah,
and he was always
Richard Littleton.
and he was always back and forward, like dialoguing and on the phone, etc. Mr. Opinion, you know. Oh dear. We had several discussions, my dad and I, about his opinions.
Right.
And I was never going to win.
There were differences of opinion.
There were big differences. They were very well debated, but
Right.
I was never going to win.
Because if I remember, I think towards the end of his life, did he become was a bit UKIP-y, was he? He was a bit kind of Brexity, UKIP-y, or was that just a phase?
He'd go to the opening of an envelope. So if somebody said to him, "Why don't you come along and do this?" He was just
Right.
he actually was quite naive,
Right.
you know, because he was a big open heart. He was a big open person. So if somebody said, "Come and do something," and he'd get on a stage, he'd do it, you know.
Yeah.
Just it was getting him out of the house as well, especially in his 80s, and you know, got into his 80s. Although you know he was still working. Cannon and Ball, Bobby Ball was picking him up in Blackpool and taking
Right.
him to gigs and dropping him back
Yeah.
as he got older. They were a really nice community. But yeah, so he was working right up until months before he died.
Right.
He did the Duke of Edinburgh's 90th birthday celebration for the Variety Club in the December, and he died in the February.
Right.
Wow.
So, you know, he was still working.
And what age was he?
85.
85.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what did he die of?
It was a complication. He actually had a cancer in his stomach, which they didn't discover. They operated, cured it, but it had already got seeped into the liver.
Right.
And too old to take too much
Yeah,
chemo.
yeah.
He tried a bit of chemo, and it
Yeah.
didn't work.
Right.
So you know, just had to let him slip away.
Oh, that
Yeah.
must have been distressing.
Yeah, he didn't take it very well. I mean, he just, for the first time in his life, he was quiet. And
Right.
I actually sat down with him, you know, and sort of said, anything we can chat, Dad, anything that we ever didn't do or, you know, should discuss. And he was just, he couldn't even respond. He just went back into it. I don't think he could believe that he weren't
Yeah.
going to be here. He had such a big life. And then suddenly it was over.
Right.
And he just went...
Did he not reflect that he'd had a very good life and a very good life? Did he
No,
not
he didn't.
go?
He just
kind of went.
he was a greedy bastard for life, you know. And I don't think he honestly
yeah. No,
was.
I know,
And I just
yeah.
don't think that he could. It just couldn't compute
Right.
that there was no more.
Right.
You know, he just went into a shadow, which was, I don't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. You know, if he'd moaned and groaned about going, it would have been worse for us.
Yeah.
The fact that he just went into a shell maybe wasn't as good for him, but maybe it was
Yeah.
better for us.
Well.
Yeah.
What was it? I mean, I know you said you moved out by the time you were 18 and stuff, you got to uni and stuff, but in terms of that lifestyle, that he was out all the time. I mean, how often did you see him in terms of all the gigging and stuff?
Very, very little. If he got back, I mean, he was doing the clubs in the northeast and the northwest, etc. You know, and they were big money days when all the big mining clubs and collieries and all the rest of it, they were earning fortunes. So you went out and made your money. So we didn't see him very often. I mean, I played rugby till I was 38, and he never saw one game in my
right.
whole life.
Really?
You know, I mean, just where's he ever going to be on a Saturday morning? Or he's going to be, getting up from the
Wow.
gig from the night before somewhere else.
That must
Yeah.
have been tough because I had to endure watching my son play football and he wasn't very good.
Have you told him this?
No, my son was very wise. He told me that his football career peaked when he was 11. But it did endure many mornings at Musgrave Park. I did take that back. My son was quite a good. No. Anyway, but no, I'm being facetious. But that kind of
It was,
your
yeah, it
dad,
was
your
difficult,
dad
yeah.
should come and see you.
Yeah,
at
as he
some
got
stage.
as he got older, you know, I mean,
You missed that sort of thing.
Into
You
his
go-
70s and 80s, then the grandkids, he would, if he came to stay with us, he'd go and see the grandkids play rugby or football or gymnastics or whatever, you know. I mean, I've got 5 kids, 2 boys and 3 girls, and I've been a chauffeur to, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Because Mum had to look after the other kids, so Dad's duty.
Yeah.
But, I was able to do that. I didn't have the gigs to do that my dad did.
And what was the Balbriggan connection there?
Balbriggan, my mum and dad had their wedding honeymoon in Balbriggan because I think it was my mother had a relative there So I think that was as exotic as it got back in whenever it was. So
I know
and
the
that,
joke he used to tell. It was St Patrick's Church. Remember the joke he used to tell? I remember my wedding like it was yesterday. Remember what a bloody awful day yesterday was.
Yeah, so I think it just then evolved on from there. When they made a few quid, he was able to buy a house there on the way to Skerries on the front, and he became Lord Mayor twice.
Yeah, he was
Probably
Lord
'cause
Mayor, Bob.
well, in those days, he just wrote the biggest cheque for charity. Whoever raised the most money got to be Lord Mayor. You know.
Yes, he did do a lot for charity, and that sounds a cliche, but he actually did do a lot for charity.
Oh no, he did. He did. I mean, he raised several million.
Yeah.
I mean, literally several million for everything from hospices, and there's a few things named after him. I think there's one in Derry, London, Derry.
So that's the integrated education coming through.
Exactly. Politically correct. There's a at the Foyle, I think it is,
Right.
up there.
Foyle Hospice.
And he did. I don't know. He raised a lot of money for one of these scanners. That is it a scanner? The strawberry. Ailment that some people are born with.
Yes, yeah.
You know, all that, and I mean, huge amount through the Variety Club of Great Britain. And raised good money for the Integrated Education Fund and others.
And do you think that coming from an underprivileged background, or
Well,
was he just like that?
I don't want to be cynical. Yes, I agree, and also it's another stage.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with being on a stage and doing good things at the same time. So it was self-publicised. And everyone benefited from it. And he gave his time freely. So I've often seen him at charity dues where he would be paid a fee and he'd put it back in.
Yeah.
I mean, all the time. If it was $3,000 or $5,000 or whatever, it would go back in. So he was very generous.
Did he get any honours? Did he get an OBA? Or an MBA?
He got two. He never got anything official. I think, reading in between the lines, he had a few tax issues. And
That wouldn't be a stand-up comedian in the 70s if you didn't.
Are you saying some payments were made in cash?
No. I would never say that. I would never say that you couldn't get any more brown envelopes under the staircase.
There were fees and there were fees, you mean?
And he and HMRC had settlements on various issues. I believe you will not get a gong if you have had tax issues.
All right.
All right. Okay.
I've read that.
By the way, that's not the reason why I haven't been offered one. Just in case you know, that's not the reason why I haven't been offered.
I believe so. However, he did get a papal knighthood.
Yes, I remember. Yes.
you remember that.
He was made
Which is even better.
well, it has a different sort of, yeah,
And that was for charitable work.
That was for charitable work, yeah. So he was made a Knight of St. Gregory.
Right. And do you get to go to the Vatican for that? Or
Of
pick that up?
course, John Paul II.
Oh, JP too? Did you get to go to that?
No, my sister, only a limited note. My sister and my mother
Right.
went to it. And he got the sort of Captain Pugwash outfit. There's a big plume and a sword. Oh no, he's got it. My sister's got it all. Hopefully, she'll donate it to something or other.
Right.
Wow.
But yeah, no, I went to a gig when one of the, I can't remember which pope it was, that's shameful, came to London, and my dad was invited as a papal knight because it was a guardian of the, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
And he went in all the pugwash stuff. And it was brilliant,
That's hilarious.
the sword and all the rest of it. Yeah, it was
But
great.
could he resist telling the Pope a joke?
They wouldn't let him that near. In case there were profanities, not from the Pope, by the way.
You see, younger comedians should watch him because he is a trailblazer in that he's from Belfast and there were very, very few Northern Ireland voices on TV or at that time.
Except in a threatening way.
Except in a threatening way, and and now in the 6 o'clock news. So he was a trailblazer, and he hasn't really been properly recognised. Is there even a blue plaque or anything?
There isn't. I had a whisper that there might be, but nothing been confirmed.
Right.
So at this point in time, apart from perhaps something that might happen at what you're leading in the IEF comedy thing. There's absolutely nothing. I mean, the discussions I had with the council sort of said, don't even think about a statue, don't even think about this, don't even think about anything permanent, because by the time you get through planning and building regs and even finding a place for it, and we're not allowed to do this because of the symmetry of the town hall, because if you have one here, you have to have one there and all this. So basically nothing of any, let's call it structural.
okay.
Well, that's a pity, because I've got the perfect solution.
Go on.
You see, they should move. You see the Carson statue up at
Stormont.
Stormont. They move that round the back, right? The statue of Frank in the front.
Well,
so then they will have Carson, right? So that would make the loyalists happy. It is Carson, right? And everybody else.
Well, I said to Tim, and it's possibly I might fund it myself to do get a bronze, but get it done in the Lord Carson style. So my dad doing the
Absolutely.
That's a cracker.
come on in. So we definitely wouldn't get a place for that, would we?
But no, seriously, he was a trailblazer, and I would genuinely recommend younger comedians watch him, because I know Adrian Walsh quite well. You know,
Yeah,
Adrian.
I know Adrian
is an
very
old
well,
style.
yeah, lovely.
And Adrian wrote stuff for him, and Adrian is a
He did.
beautiful comedian himself.
Very funny
and would have
guy.
been very funny. And I know he wrote stuff, but he's of that genre and of that style, which some of the younger comedians might go, we don't need it. But the way he worked and the way he was able to work any crowd, we put him anywhere in England or abroad even, and he just had that presence and the ability, and it is an art form. Stand-up comedy is an art form. You agree with that?
You would say that anyway.
I like to say.
It's not properly recognised as an art form, and if you want to see the art form, come and see me in the lake on the 28th.
You remember the date?
2027, 2027.
28th of August. But I mean, I suppose some younger comedians may not remember him that well, but they should Google him and have a look at him.
Absolutely. No.
There is tons of stuff out there of him.
Yeah, he used to always say, if you're not working, work on your act.
Yeah.
Because it is actually, you have to go through an apprenticeship and really learn the lessons, and there's no one better to learn from than someone who's been there and done it.
Yeah.
So I'd agree.
My
I'd agree
favourite
with you.
Frank Carson joke isn't actually well known, but it was when we did the documentary. We did the documentary with him. They got him to do a show for was then the RUC, and he came on and he said, and I've effed this joke up before, so I'm going to do it right. he comes on, it's all RUC, right? It's RUC Social Club, and he goes, what do you call a Catholic when he leaves the room? A Fenian bastard! Hey!
All right.
It was very controversial at the time.
Yes. Very good.
Because the police laughed.
Yeah, because the police all laughed.
The police all.
Yeah.
They would.
Tell them
There weren't any Catholics in the audience.
That's it. Okay.
That was at a documentary we did called Ulster Says Ho Ho Ho.
Ulster Says Ho Ho
worked
Ho,
with him
yeah.
for a few days, but as you say, relentless, never stopped. He was never off. He was never off duty.
Like a machine gun.
Yeah.
And that could get a bit wearing for
Yeah, definitely. Especially, as I said, when you were out as a family and it was just,
Yeah.
because he'd know.
They never stop. I mean, seriously.
He'd know which jokes that everybody would laugh to, but we'd heard them 100 freaking times.
Yes. Yeah.
So it did become a
So
bit
if you're going out for dinner or
boring.
something like that, where you're all sitting down at the table, was he still working the room?
Always, yeah.
Okay.
The waiter. I mean, it didn't matter. It was just any victim. Yeah.
Right, okay.
So.
And we not to name drop, but we know Oscar Wilde's grandson, a guy called Merlin Holland, who was who writes about Oscar Wilde and all, but not quite feels the burden, but does feel that he has to do something about Oscar. And he's written books about Oscar Wilde. He's not just Oscar Wilde's grandson, but he feels like there's a slight burden in being Oscar Wilde's grandson. Is there a slight burden? You went on to be a hugely successful businessman in your own right. You had a really successful career, didn't you? Mm-hmm. So the Frank, is he a shadow, or is he something that you think, I just want to honour his memory and that's it done then after the 100 years?
No, I've always celebrated my dad's achievements because it's a 1 in a million type achievement. I mean, you know, so it's special even outside my relationship with him. You have to admire what he achieved and how he achieved it from his humble backgrounds. So I always want to celebrate, you know, as long as there's something to celebrate. And I think the centenary is probably, you know, the cliff edge. So I'm just hoping that we can, although it is his centenary year from the 6th of November.
Yes.
For you know, for a year. But it's the 6th of November this year, I think, is an important date in and around that.
I think I'm right. Did you you know Dan's one-man show, which is brilliant. I mean, he really does capture
absolutely,
Frank. No question about it. And it's very funny in its own right, of course.
Yeah.
But did you work with Dan on that, or did you?
No, absolutely. No, we had to provide him with scripts and with, you know, lots of background information, and we went to some of the practice shows at various places. Went to the Fringe with him, where he first showed it in big form. And so we saw it all the way through. Dan's a lovely man. He's very generous, and I hope that, you know, something comes out of that the BBC, UTV, RTE do something around the 6th of November.
Did they do a documentary on them?
There's been several documentaries on my daddy.
On the play, though, did they do something on them?
They did. They did a documentary.
Probably on YouTube, probably somewhere.
It's probably on that. And also,
but it's well worth a look. It's called Rebel Without a Pause, and it's about Dan and the life of your dad. It's not just comedy. It's quite a poignant life. There's lots of really not quite dark bits, but bits that are kind of, you know, poignant and moving.
He got inside the man.
Yeah,
you know, the way that, I mean, that Dan wrote the script as well. So you know, he got right inside him, as well as repeat some of the jokes.
Plenty of the jokes, but it's not an impression, but it's a really good likeness of him. You know, it's not not doing a pastiche of him, but it's a really good.
I mean,
he
Dan
inhabited a character.
He grew the big diggers that, you know, the big sideboards that people had, and he got the hair, and I mean, he just almost could have passed my dad off, and he got the accent. It wouldn't be difficult for him. Just close your mouth and speak through your nose. You know? So hopefully some of that stuff that Dan's done will be replayed. And I think there's another documentary where he goes around Belfast about the dock area and Little Italy and all of that. So there's a lot of stuff going way back. So there must be a huge amount of archive stuff if somebody wants to celebrate his centenary, and it's getting through to the decision makers is always the difficult bit, isn't it? The groundswell. I'm hoping that maybe this, you know, podcast would get a few people to write in or drop an email or do something that says you should, you know. Yeah.
Well, as a younger person who loved comedy, Frank was one of those people, Frank and Roy Walker and types like that, and you go, well, people from here. Now, the people from here had to go away in those days, and we were the first generation of people to go, well, you can actually stay here and do it, and, you know, give me headpiece and things like that. But there really wasn't any outlet here on television or radio, certainly during the Troubles. So Frank was the kind of the icon for Irish comedy. And, you know, I think, well, certainly I would, with the view that deserves to be remembered in some way, in a formal way.
It would be nice. So we'll keep trying, you know, and one way or another we'll get something done, hopefully.
You're a very successful businessman. You run
Keep
restaurants.
Saying that. You're making me.
No. It's part of that. Is that you know, you're not just here because you're Frank's son, but you made an independent life. I mean, Frank, I think you said, you know, he was a very wealthy man, you know, so you could just sit back and you scratch your arse and spend his money, but you didn't do that. You went off and did all sorts of fascinating things.
Yeah, I think you have to find yourself, don't you? And, you know, the mistake is if you don't. You've got to go out and risk. And I think that edge for risk, ability for risk, is what makes you an entrepreneur. You want to go and achieve something. Is it because I had a famous dad and needed a parallel to do it myself? You just don't know. It's not a conscious thing. Right. You just want to get on and do something. So just got on and did things.
You did things. You ran restaurants and all.
I built branded restaurant chains and hotels, tech companies, property. few different aspects. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm still. I mean, to me, retirement is a dirty word.
Right.
So I'm still doing things.
You're still very active.
Yeah. But I mean, what else do you do? You only play especially in Northern Ireland. You only play so much golf. You know, that's why I spend half the year in Spain. So you can get out and do things. But no, I if I don't have something to achieve every day, sounds a bit sad, doesn't it? Then I'm uncomfortable. I just need to have something to complete and say that was fulfilled. Bit of exercise, bit of grey matter, bit of social.
Right.
You know, if you can get that combo, then
Yeah.
you know that's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tony, for coming in. Thank you for your support for the Integrated Education Fund, by the way. I think our gig is early October in the Grand Opera House. It's on sale now, the Ulster Hall, the annual Stand Up for Integrated Education. And Frank and yourself have been very generous in your support of that very worthy cause. We appreciate it. And if anybody is listening, watching, and younger comedians, do look up Frank Carson. You may go, oh, that's ancient. You will learn something from watching Frank Carson. And any older people of our generation and beyond will certainly remember Frank, and I think he does deserve to be remembered in a more formal way. You know,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you know.
great.
So thank you very much for your time, and here's to the memory of Mr. Frank Carson. Tony, thank you very much for coming on the Give Me Head podcast. We will see you next time. Thank you.
My pleasure.